Michael Neill,
Robert.
congrat- congratulations to you. This is the occasion of your 1,000 Michael Neill Catalyst tip. I've bought the champagne
Wow.
from Lord. I thought we would drink Lord's Cricket Ground
I
champagne.
yeah, I would be even more touched if I was actually in the same country as you. Drunk to celebrate my achievements, Robert. Thank you.
Well, I just want you to know I'm taking it seriously and I'm going to be celebrating.
It's
And,
fair. So I'm still coffee, but you know.
and I really am. I'm very, very, well, I just think it's a fantastic achievement. 1,000 newsletters. I was having a little look through the archive of when I began to follow you because I'm a subscriber to your tips. And I found one, it was from February the 5th, 2007. So this would have been the Mnct 541.
Wow.
And when I first joined, and as you know, because I tell you and I tell all my friends too, you know, I'm just a huge fan of your newsletter. And I was actually aware that the MNCT number, which I think for the longest time I had no idea what that was, by the way. But, but the MNCT number was starting to creep up towards the 1,000, and I was hoping you would do something to mark the moment. So a huge congratulations to you, because truly these newsletters are completely and utterly inspiring to me. And I know to millions of people. I only recently, Holly and I were sitting at the dinner table and we declared you to be a genius because yet again, you'd written a newsletter that had given us so much to think about. In fact, I remember I emailed you about that to tell you that we had officially declared you to be a genius. So, well, let's just start with how are you feeling about it?
Well, it's really funny. I was talking to to Maisie, my little one. And we were talking about, and she said, "Are you going to tell everybody that it's your 1,000th tip? Are you?" And I said, "Well, I think they'll figure it out because it says 1,000 across the top, but but it does. It feels noteworthy in the sense that I really started out not knowing if I'd make it to 100. You know, I started out without a grand vision or design or goal or target. I just wanted to start writing down these ideas that would come to me, these insights, and it was as simple as that. So I remember it was when I got to 100. I remember writing a tip about writing 100 tips, and sort of in the back of my mind, I think the thought may have passed through. Can you imagine one day we get to 1,000? And it's like, it's never gonna happen.
But when I joined you, I think the tips were weekly tips at that point, but it wasn't always that way, was it?
No, I started out writing daily or daily Monday to Friday. So I'd actually write Sunday to Thursday, and they would come out Monday to Friday. And oddly, it was much easier writing them daily than it is to write them weekly.
How's that?
Well, because when I was writing daily, I would live each day with an awareness that I was going to have to write something in the evening. So I would notice things that would make good tips throughout the day. Whereas I can kind of forget that on Sunday I'm going to be writing a tip. And so I can easily get through the week without paying any attention. And then Sunday, in fairness, usually around Friday night, I go, what am I going to write this week? I don't know, and usually I have one or two things by Sunday that I've been reflecting on, but I don't know till I sit down at the keyboard if it will turn into a tip or not.
I wondered about that because it strikes me that when you write in a way that's very current. It's of the moment. This is what is striking me right now. And when I think about all of the fabulous conversations you get into on a daily basis, you know, with your coaching clients, with your friends, you know, just your community in general. I was wondering about, how do you decide what's a relevant tip for each week, really?
Well, in a way, the more I think about it, the worse it gets. I kind of try not want to is my answer. I sort of have developed a trust that what is on my mind and flows easily seems to be perfect for enough of the people that read it, that I get emails every week going, how did you know? And I think partly that's also that I'm addressing some fairly universal human themes. So it's always going to be relevant to some people. But I have a trust in it. When I started, I actually kind of created a little mental guideline, which was, I haven't thought about this in years, but it was simple, practical, empowering, fun.
Nice. Say that again.
Practical, empowering, fun.
Yeah.
And when I started, that was my little touchstone. Now I don't think of it in the same way, but I know the feel. I know when the feel is wrong. I know when it gets preachy, which occasionally it does. I know when I've kind of gone off on something that's interesting to me, but nobody else except maybe you, right? I have a feel for the tone.
Yeah.
It's just evolved over time.
Now, as you said, you've addressed the big universal themes over the years. Do you remember the theme of the very first one?
Well, only because one of the 5 people who got the very first tip had a copy and somehow had saved it for 16 years.
Wow.
And she did. It wasn't like she had all of them. And thank you, Elizabeth. But I mean, somehow something in her knew to save it. And so thanks to her. Yeah, the very first tip, I remember, it was a book I'd read about success is just one wish away. But in the book, you had to get the wish right. I don't even remember what the author thought the right wish was. But I loved the idea of if you had one wish and it mattered, what would that wish be? And so that was the very first tip. And it was, people who complain about my verbosity would have loved the early tips because I think it was about a paragraph long. It was, probably 100 words instead of 1,000.
Yeah, wow. And Michael, you've, over the years, I've felt that, we've watched you grow really through your newsletter. We've watched your own thinking evolve. We've watched you with your most recent discoveries. It's very public of you. You always, for me, they're very intimate, the newsletters. They're also, what I really have appreciated all the way through is that you make me think. And I often say that to my friends when I'm recommending a book of yours or recommending a workshop. It's like, Michael makes me think. And I'm so grateful to you for that, because you have shown me over and over again that there really is always another way to think about things. And as much as anything, you've taught me how to think about thinking, actually. And that has been, truly a complete and utter blessing. And that's why your newsletter is the one that I have subscribed to for the longest of any newsletter I've ever subscribed to. I'm curious, Michael, how have you benefited from writing the newsletters over the years?
Well, I think what it's done is it's given a focus to all the ideas. So I used to be a massive inputter as well. So I would read at least 3 books a week on success and happiness and well-being and the mind. And so initially, I think what it did is it opened an outflow. So I remember I used to think of it as a pipe. And if you put liquid in one end of the pipe, but you block the other end, you're going to get a blockage. You're going to get a backup. And that by writing every day and by doing my best to express it, it kept the insight flowing through. So I know the other way, that if I write too much, if I talk too much about it, and I haven't taken the time to input, it can empty out a little bit. The difference is that I don't input from books so much anymore.
Yeah.
The input is more of I don't know how to talk about it without sounding pretentious, but it's more of a connection to an inner wisdom, an inner source of insight, a more divine source of insight than other people's articulation. I still read, but nowhere like the volume that I used to read.
Yeah. I don't think that's pretentious at all. In fact, I see that as being very much so the path that's happened for you, and that does actually, I think, happen for creative people. That actually you have first you dared um, to voice yourself, to actually just start, and then that voice emerged. And to me, what I love is the confidence with which you write now. I feel like you really trust your voice, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a whole period that it was about finding my voice. And I don't know any other way of finding your voice than using it.
Yeah.
I say to writers all the time, or wannabe writers, write. Whether anybody ever reads it, I happen to do it publicly, partly because I think in fact, I know if there's no one to read it, I don't write. I don't know what it is. It might be some deep character flaw, but I am a deadline writer. If there isn't an outlet, nothing happens. And to the point where I hired a coach in about 2005, 2006. No, it must have been even later, 2008. So I've been writing the tips for over 8 years. I'd worked on, I'd ghosted a few books. I'd worked as a sort of contributing editor to the Paul McKenna books. I'd written a couple of my own books already. My first 2 books had come out. And I hired a coach so that I would start doing it correctly and actually writing every day, even if there was no one to listen, even if there was no deadline. And he, bless him, he let me pay him and fly out to see him. And his opening line was, "Are you a complete moron?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, how many books have you worked on?" And it was about 8 at that point. I said, "And how have they done?" And I said, "Well, they've all been bestsellers. How many copies sold?" "Well, over 1 million." "Well, and have you ever missed a deadline?" "No." And it was until he said it, I really did think that I didn't know how to write. I wasn't a real writer. I didn't do it the way I thought real writers write, no matter what. I thought real writers write every day. And it just wasn't so for me.
Yeah. I love listening to you talk about writing because it's, well, I think there's so many myths about writing. Ultimately, I don't actually believe that we really believe that most writers even write. The thought that somebody really sits down at a desk and does some writing, that's quite something. Do you have you ever experienced writer's block? Or a better question really would be, of course, I know you'll have experienced writer's block before, but what about more recently? What about now? Do you still experience?
Well, I'm in hell right now. I've got my deadline for my next Hay House book is November 30th. And it's terrible. I mean, it's just, I do know what I want to say, but boy, when I look at it on paper, I'm like, oh no, not like that. So the difference is I've been down this road 100 times. I've been down this road actually 1,000 times. And so I know this is just what it feels like as I'm trying to connect up to the flow. I know that there's that point where, like, if you imagine attaching a fire hose to a hydrant, and the hydrant is already, the water's gushing out at force, and you're trying to get the hose connected to it, and the pressure is so intense as you're doing that, because the creative flow is coming, but you're not quite up to it, and you're getting soaked and tired. But I've done it 1,000 times. I know that the second the hose attaches to the hydrant, all that flow becomes directed effortlessly, perfectly, and it'll just pour out. So I'm not freaked out in the way that I used to freak out. I just get this is where I am in the writing process right now.
And for me, that's one of the things I've really been picking up on your tips recently, is that it's not so much what's happening in your life that matters, it's your relationship to what's happening that really matters. Actually, I was giving a workshop this weekend and somebody was asking, how do you stop judging? And, I was saying, I just think that's way too ambitious right now. Let's not stop judging. Let's just see if we can have a different relationship to our judgments.
Yeah.
and see if that takes us somewhere, you know. And to me, that's what I'm hearing here is that the inner critic will strike from time to time, or the writer's block will happen from time to time, but fundamentally the relationship to it is a bit more sane than it used to be. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. It really is a completely different inquiry because I joked in the TEDx talk about Bob the homeless guy taking up residency in your head from time to time, and he goes off and singing in your head. And it's like, yeah, some days it's annoying, some days it's not, but it's not something that you really got to give a lot of attention to. It's not something you really got to do anything about. It's just Bob the homeless guy. He'll do his thing and then he'll move on, and he's harmless. He's a nice guy, at core. It's just.
It's nice to reflect, I think, from time to time. It's so easy to go fast forwarding through life. This is a nice moment just to reflect on what you've done, and it is a proper accomplishment. Any other gift that you've really received from this experience, from this journey that occurs to you right now?
Do you know what? It's opened up the world to me quite literally. This started out going to 5 people.
Yeah.
And, there are hundreds of thousands of people who have listened and shared with me. I mean, tens of thousands have shared with me how they've been touched by this. I remember in that first year even, getting these amazing stories coming back where I remember there was a woman who'd heard of me because somebody had printed off one of my tips and posted it on the notice board at a church in South Africa. There was somebody who had run into somebody else at a business meeting who was having trouble making a decision. And she said, "Oh, I've got this great technique," and started to show it to them. And they went, "Do you read Michael Neill's tips?" Because it was something I had written about that week. And it really never occurred to me that things could spread that way. That without being a marketer, without having the intent of building a list or all the things that I've read about, and to be honest, still make me feel inadequate, like I don't know what I'm doing, because it's not mostly how I would do things. That you can just share from the heart, and that's enough. You'll find your tribe, and they'll find you.
Yeah. I think most people who are prolific are taken by surprise at the fact that they are prolific. It sort of creeps up on you, I suppose, after a while. And I think I love hearing just how, that really in many ways the secret to these tips and to 1,000 of them is that you've just kept showing up. You haven't gone away.
Yeah. And I think that really is, it is as simple as that. Is each time, it would be easy enough for me to not do it. I mean, to be honest, I don't make any money from it. It's not, I mean, my son, I remember when I hit like 10,000 subscribers, my son, who was like 14 at the time, said, "Dad, you need to charge everybody $1 and then you'll be rich." And I thought about it. I thought, well, that's not a bad idea. Probably 3/4 of them would leave, but I bet 1/4 of the people would pay me $1. But it just, that never felt right either, because then it would become a thing.
Yeah.
And there's something about this that has always been for me. I don't think I would do it if nobody else cared. I don't think that if there weren't people to share it with, I would keep doing it. But essentially, this is a touchstone for me in my week. This is my church. This is my place each week where I get to connect to the divine source and let myself be taken over by something larger than me. And it has a very kind of a sacred role in my life, even though there are times where I wish it didn't.
Yeah. But let's just talk about the mechanics for a moment. Roughly, how long does it take you to write a tip? And also just a little bit about the time and the space bit. I mean, is it always last minute, never last minute? Is there a set time in the week? Talk us through just the mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, when I was writing daily, it would be last thing in the evening. I just found that was always when I did it. And I was quite interested that I never missed one, that the one day, like, and it was something like day 179 of the first 225. I remember I was incredibly ill, and I thought, oh, today's going to be the day, and I just couldn't not do it. And I got up, and the tip was something like, maybe somebody out there has this one, but it was, back then it was daily coaching tip, DCT. So it was DCT number 179. I'm really sick right now, and I have nothing to say. I have no brain space, and I feel like I'm going to throw up on the keyboard. But I just wanted to say thank you for reading these things. And one day, maybe we'll look back on this, those of us who have been sticking with these tips every day, and one of us will say to the other, remember tip 179? We'll smile and a twinkle in our eye will go, yes, I do. With all my love, Michael, because that was it.
Yeah. You showed up.
But yeah, it was showing up. Now that I write daily, I write on Sunday mornings. So almost every tip is written between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. And that's because the football game usually starts at 10 a.m. So it's sort of my heart out. I got to be done at 10 so I can put the Patriots game on during football season. So it takes about 2 hours, and about an hour to an hour and a half of that is writing the tip. And then half an hour of that is pottering around, looking for a good quote for that tip. Playing with the other bits and pieces about, like, the radio show and the noise. Yeah.
How about your relationship between the tips and your book writing?
It's similar but very different. The similarity is I'm used to writing in bursts. Just sit down and put an idea on paper and not try and create this epic flow. It's like, hey, here's an idea. And then as I've got a lot of these bits, I go back and I go, oh, this connects to this, and this flows from this. And if I put something in here, this would feel like a narrative rather than tips. And so that's sort of the evolution of it, is that whereas the tips are self-contained, so far in writing books, I've always tried to create more of a flow and more of a conversational feel than here's one.
Yeah.
Little bits and pieces.
I think that's one of the fun things about writing is trying to understand the medium, actually, and trying to find different ways to write for that medium, whether it is a newsletter or a blog, or if it's a book or a Twitter or a Facebook. It's fun, isn't it? It's great fun trying
to. It is. And well, you know what? It's mostly fun. Like people assume I love writing, and it's not wrong to say that I love writing, but it's not completely accurate. Some days I love writing. Some days I hate writing, but I always love reading what I've written. I always love seeing what comes through that thing.
Yeah.
It comes from somewhere beyond me. It comes from somewhere that I don't know it before it comes out of my mouth. There's a G.K. Chesterton quote I've always loved, how do I know what I think until I hear myself say it? And I think that's what gets me to show up each day. Isn't that I love writing, though sometimes I do, but I really do love that feeling of something coming through and then going back and going, and it's not that I love everything I write. I think I write some horrible things, just I don't publish them. I don't share those. In fact, I won't let my wife read anything I write until it's published. So she never gets to see the books in final draft until they're physically, when it's in book form, Nina gets to read it, because I care way too much about what she thinks. And so that's my way around it, is sorry, once I can't do anything about it, you're welcome to read it. But as long as it's me, you're not getting hold of it.
It is a hugely vulnerable thing, or it can be if you write in a certain way like this. It's true. And I agree with you. I don't think writing is something to love particularly. of itself. It's more, I think, the purpose of the writing that's so wonderful. You know, personally, I think of writing as this chance to listen, essentially, and learn something along the way. And again, I think that's what I really like with you is that also I have to say I think there's a freshness, there's an excitement, and there's this. It's just I just love how you want to share what's got your attention right now, and also this your latest analogy, for instance. You are the king of analogies. I mean, they are brilliant, Michael Neill. They are absolutely superb how they come out. And I think to me, what you demonstrate now is that somehow you have found a way to be the hose pipe actually, and now it's not just um, prolific, but I'd say it's inspired, and it's continually inspired, and it's continually brilliant. And again, I just want to emphasize, you know, your newsletter is my favorite newsletter, so I'm so glad that I get to drink this champagne that I have given myself on this occasion to celebrate the fact that I will be reading your 1000th newsletter. I feel very honored to accept this award of, of yeah, on your behalf of
beautiful man.
Will read this. Yeah, no, and I can only just say how happy I am and how grateful I am to you to accept this award on your behalf, actually. And you've done very, very well. And please keep writing because you are truly inspiring. And congratulations, Michael Neill.
Thank you, Robert Holden.